Ladies and gentlemen, tonight we're diving into a machine that didn't chase fame, didn't flex chrome like a movie star, and didn't roar like a race car, but quietly rebuilt America one delivery at a time. The 1948 Nash Model 3148 Haul Thrift Stake Truck is that humble hero, the kind of vehicle that worked harder than your neighbor who suddenly started a business during lockdown and now won't stop talking about it. And before we go any further, hit that subscribe button, because here we celebrate machines that actually did something useful. Unlike some politicians who promise roads but forget trucks like this are the reason those roads mattered in the first place. Now, let's rewind to post-World War II America. It's 1948, and the country is in full rebuild mode. Factories that once produced tanks and aircraft are suddenly making cars, appliances, and most importantly, work truck. Nash Kelvinator Corporation, based in Kenosha, Wisconsin, wasn't one of the big three. But they were smart enough to know that small businesses, farmers, and local trades needed something reliable, simple, and affordable. That's where the Haul Thrift line came in. Even the name sounds like your accountant's dream. Nash wasn't trying to outmuscle Ford or Chevrolet. They were aiming for efficiency, practicality, and cost-conscious buyers. Think of it as the guy who doesn't show off at the gym, but somehow lifts more than everyone else. The Model 3148 was part of this strategy. Built on a sturdy ladder frame chassis, it targeted users who needed versatility: stake beds, flatbeds, towing setups, you name it. Production numbers were never massive, likely only a few thousand across all variants, and today surviving examples are extremely rare. We're talking spot one at a show, and suddenly everyone becomes a historian rare. Some trucks like this even served as tow vehicles at Nash dealerships themselves. It's like the company trusted its own product so much it said, if something breaks, we'll send one of ours to fix it. That's confidence, or a clever marketing move. Now let's talk about what's under the skin, because this is where things get interesting. The 1948 Nash Model 3148 rides on a 133-inch wheelbase. That's about 11 feet, 1 inch, or roughly 3,378 millimeters. Long enough to mean business, but still manageable in tight town streets where turning radius mattered more than ego. Power comes from an inline-six engine. In the documented example, we're looking at a 253 cubic inch unit at around 4.1 liters, originally sourced from a 1952 Nash Ambassador. Now yes, that means some trucks evolved over time, which is pretty normal for working machines. Nobody in 1948 was saying, let's preserve originality, they were saying, will it start on Monday? It breathes through a single carburetor and benefits from a record radiator, rebuilt distributor, and updated fuel system. Also, many of these trucks were upgraded from the original 6-volt electrical system to a 12-volt setup, because even trucks deserve modern convenience. And here's where I believe things get really clever. Power goes through a Warner T97 4-speed manual transmission, a tough, no-nonsense gearbox used in serious work applications. But this particular truck adds a Detroit Harvester auxiliary transmission with overdrive and underdrive. That means more gear ratios, better torque when hauling, and more relaxed cruising when you're not in no hurry. Let's be honest, is most of the time in a truck like this. Pimmy once told me he could fix any gearbox with a hammer and positive thinking. I haven't seen his car move since 2017. But I've my mouth of confidence. Both transmissions also feature power takeoff capability, allowing the truck to run external equipment. That's a big deal if you're operating winches or farm tools. This wasn't just a truck, it was a mobile work platform. Underneath, The suspension uses classic leaf springs front and rear. Not luxurious, not soft, but incredibly durable. It's the kind of setup that says, we're here to carry weight, not your feelings, Breefstuw Dreetjes and four corners. Afgend in restored examples. Bassies Linders improve longeshi. The truck rolls on 20-inch steel wheels, fitted with heavy-duty Ipaya. Up front, 7. 5-inch wide rubber keeps things steady, while the rear features dual wheels, dually set up for increased stability and payload capacity. Because when you're hauling serious loads, balance matters more than style, Bob. My neighbor once claimed dual rear wheels were invented to confuse satellites. I told him, Bob, satellites have bigger problems than your parking job. And yet, despite its simplicity, the Nash 3148 represents something bigger. It's a reminder that innovation doesn't always shout. The cab itself was simple but thoughtful inside. You'd find a bench seat trimmed in durable materials, designed to survive years of use, and probably a few spilled coffees from stressed business owners. The dashboard featured an 80 mph speedometer, along with auxiliary gauges, all arranged in a straightforward layout that didn't require a manual thicker than a politician's promises. In some restored examples, an additional shift lever for the auxiliary transmission sits proudly on the right-on fesh, like a friendly mender. Out back, the stake bed configuration was the real star. Built for flexibility, it allowed owners to haul everything from farberything from varkenstrokken materials. In refurbished trucks, hardwood like apatong is often used for the bed's strong, durable, and visually striking. It's the kind of detail that makes collectors smile and accountants nervous. Timmy once said he could build a truck bed out of whatever's lying around. Last time I checked, that included 2 doors, a chair, and something that might have been part of a fence. When we compare the Nash 3148 to its contemporaries Ford, Chevrolet, and Dodge trucks of the late 1940s, we see a very different philosophy. The big players focused on scale, power, and nationwide dealer networks. Nash, on the other hand, focused on niche practicality. It reused passenger car components to keep costs down and leaned into efficiency rather than brute strength. There's no pretense, no unnecessary complexity, just solid engineering and a clear purpose. It's a truck that doesn't try to impress you and somehow ends up doing exactly that. Now, before we talk numbers, let's give this workhorse the respect it deserves. The Nash Model 3148 helped rebuild small businesses, supported local economies, and carried the weight of a nation getting back on its feet. It may not have headlines or trophies, but it has something better: history, character, and a story worth telling. And now, finally, the numbers when new trucks like the Nash Haul Thrift were priced somewhere between $1,200 and $1,800 USD. Adjusted for today, that's roughly $15,000 to $22,000, an absolute bargain for a machine that could literally run your business. Not bad for something that started life as a humble work tool. So here's the deal. My friends, if you ever find one of these sitting in a barn, covered in dust and questionable decisions, don't walk away. That's not just a truck, that's a second chance at history. For the price of a coffee, you keep this channel alive and fuel my obsession with weird, wonderful machines. Honestly, you're more reliable than Timmy after a Friday night. And that's saying something. Final advice: if your neighbor tells you it's just an old truck, smile it before he Googles it.